Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is going to be an episode of It Came From the Network. On this episode, we're covering WrestleMania XI. Now if you're not familiar with It Came From the Network, this is where we review the weird, the wild, the campy, and sometimes just bad stuff that you can find on the WWE Network. This one is recommended to us from our good friend, Ryan Hadley. He recommended, since it's WrestleMania season, why not do WrestleMania 11 or WrestleMania 12? I looked at both the cards. From what I remembered, WrestleMania 11 was the less quality of a show, let's say. So I decided to do that one. If I have time, I'm going to fit number 12 in for you a little bit, maybe in a week or so. But let's jump right into this. First match of the night, we have the Allied powers of British Bulldog and Lex Luger versus the Blues Brothers, Jacob and Eli. Funny thing about the Blues Brothers, go on, they become the Harris twins. They have Uncle Zebekiah as their manager, who would go on to be Zeb Coulter and famously Dutch Mantel before that. An okay starter. This match was actually better than I kind of remembered it. When I looked at it on paper, I was kind of expecting a bad match, but it wasn't terrible. Bulldog and Luger pick up the win. Obviously, I mean, who wouldn't win out? Who would you expect to win out of that? But overall, not a terrible match. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 to start off the show. Not bad. Better than I thought it was going to be going into it, especially with what I remembered from both these teams at that era. At this time, the Blues Brothers, Harris twins were very green, very, I don't know if you want to call them sloppy, but they weren't as good as they would become. And they never really became great wrestlers, but they became good storytellers. So this was on the early end of their career. So I'm going to give it a 2. It was a good match, nothing great, nothing terrible. Next up, we have for the Intercontinental Championship, Double J, Jeff Jarrett with the Roadie, a.k.a. Road Dogg Jesse James, versus Razor Ramon with the 1-2-3 Kid. And the 1-2-3 Kid, for some weird reason, decided he was going to dress up like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I don't remember what the angle was where he was wearing Japanese gear, other than they mentioned that he was karate trained. That's why he had the educated feet. Now, this was a good match. I actually liked this match. I think the two of them had better matches, Ramon and Jarrett, at different times. I liked the involvement with the Roadie, who would go on to be something bigger, and the Kid. Thought it was okay. Razor picks up the win by DQ, so he doesn't win the championship, but he wins the match. Give the match a 2.5 out of 5. I thought it was better than the first match, but I've seen better from both these guys, so I can't really give it much better than that. Now rolling on to our third match of the night. Former WrestleMania main eventer King Kong Bundy with Ted DiBiase, at this point he's part of the $1 Million Corporation, versus The Undertaker with Paul Bearer. And special guest referee Larry Young. If you don't remember, this was during the time that WWE, that Major League Baseball had their strike going on, and Larry Young was a Major League Baseball referee. Trust me, I had to do a little bit of research to get this too. I didn't really remember why he was on there. So since he was out of work, he was invited to become a WWF referee. I know. It was silly. WWE took a lot of shots at baseball at the time. The Abe Knuckleball Schwartz. They had the famous commercials that we don't have an off season. Our superstars don't strike. All that good stuff. But I digress. We're going off of the subject too much. This was an early Undertaker streak match. If you look back at the streak, the first about 5 or 6 matches he had were him versus the Giant or a bigger, huge guy, like basically two huge men, like two colossal people going against each other. And this was a formula they used here. He wrestled Bundy. Obviously, Taker wins. We all know he goes on to WrestleMania 30 with the streak. During the match, some of the things that we seen, Kama Mustafa, who would go on to become the Undertaker, came out and stole the urn, which the $1 million team already had possession of, which was really weird, but later on he would turn it into a gold chain and then Undertaker would get it back, and the whole urn thing is weird and silly, but it's the Undertaker, so you accept it. Overall, I give this match a 2 out of 5. Bundy wasn't as good as Bundy had been earlier in his career. Undertaker really hadn't broken out yet, and it's going to sound disrespectful, but I don't think Undertaker, his character was awesome the whole time. But until he wrestled Mankind in '96, I believe, in the Boiler Room matches in that feud, he didn't really break the character out of being just a big, stiff zombie mode. After he wrestled Mankind, you seen him more evolve his style and become a better wrestler and a better ring worker. He was still in the undead zombie mode here, and I'm sorry, to me, he wasn't as interesting in undead zombie mode as he would become later on. And I know if you're an Undertaker mark, I apologize. Like I said, his character was always phenomenal. His matches, not always great. And this is one of those. Next up, we have one of my favorite things of the night. We cut away, and we see basically all the stars that are going to be in the show. We see the NFL pros who are going to be with Lawrence Taylor later on. We see John Turturro, who's a backstage interviewer through the night, and he's going to announce the HBK Diesel match later. And they cut to, and this is the reason I kept it, and usually I ignore these things, but they cut to Jonathan Taylor Thomas from Home Improvement and Bob Backlund playing chess. Jonathan Taylor Thomas ends up beating Mr. Backlund. Backlund blames John Turturro and everybody for distracting him, and I thought the segment was just funny. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a nice way to get your superstar outside of wrestling involved while keeping one of your main guys that's not on the card, or actually is on the card, but keeping one of your guys involved. I thought it was cool. I give this one a 3 out of 5, this segment. I thought it was, for what it was probably one of the most interesting things on the show. I laughed. I enjoyed it. I forgot about it being on the show. It's been years since I've seen this. Probably, I want to say, probably since the initial showing, I haven't watched WrestleMania 11. There's not much to go back for. Maybe a couple matches here and there on compilations. But other than that, I haven't watched this full card in 20 plus years. So I forgot all about this segment, and it still delivered. It was still funny. I liked it. I thought it was interesting, as you can see. Next up is probably my favorite match of the night. Owen Hart with a surprise tag team partner, which would become Yokozuna, coming to the ring with Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette. Always liked that fact that they had two managers, versus the Smoking Guns for the tag team championship. Now, the story going into this was Owen got to pick whatever tag partner he wanted for this. There were all kind of rumors. Who's Owen going to pick? Picked Yokozuna, surprisingly. They put on a great match. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. Like I said, this is probably my favorite match of the card. Owen and Yoko pick up the win. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I thought Owen and Yoko working as a team are a highly underrated tag team in history. I think their chemistry together, their tag team ability, the ability of both of them as singles is just they're just great together. And then Smoking Guns as well, a team that gets overlooked in history by the fact that Billy Gunn would go do so much more with the New Age Outlaws. But the Smoking Guns were actually a very solid team and a very good team before the Outlaws, before Billy Gunn would go on and break out on his own. But history kind of pushes them under the rug, even though I thought they were a very solid team. Both these teams should probably be looked at more favorably with time. Unfortunately, they're not. But, like I said, my favorite match of the night. Now, coming up next, we have Mr. Backlund versus Bret the Hitman Hart in an I Quit match with Roddy Piper as the referee. Now, coming into this, and sorry guys, I'm getting over a cold, so I have to keep drinking to help beat my cold. But anyway, I digress. We come into this match, what probably on paper looked like it should have been the best match of the night. And it was very good, but to me, it left something on the table. Backlund and Bret just didn't seem to have the chemistry that they should have. When I think of this, I think this should have been a match that would be like, I don't know what to compare with, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, or Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit when they wrestled in WCW. I thought Backlund and Bret would be the perfect opponents for each other with the similar styles. For me, it wasn't a bad match, and you'll see with my rating, I didn't give it a bad rating. I just think it didn't deliver as much as it could have. I gave it a 3 out of 5. A little bit better than most of the matches on the card, but to me a little bit underwhelming as well. And maybe it's my high expectations. Maybe they just didn't deliver to me. And remembering back at the time, I don't remember these two ever having a great match together, so maybe it's just those two didn't click with each other. But anyway, I digress. Another thing before I skip off of this match, I don't know that Bob Backlund actually said I quit. He mumbled something, and Piper rang the bell, but it didn't sound like he said I quit. So I don't remember if they did a thing after the pay-per-view with him saying I never said I quit, but to me it didn't sound like he said I quit. So who knows? I digress. Moving on to the next match. The WWE Championship match. Diesel coming in the ring with Pamela Anderson versus Shawn Michaels coming in the ring with Jenny McCarthy. This, to me, it was a good match. I really enjoy the two matchups, the bigger guy Diesel and the smaller guy Shawn Michaels, and how they worked with each other. I think they relied a little bit too much with the story of Pamela Anderson coming in the ring with Shawn Michaels, which she didn't, and coming in the ring with Diesel instead. I think they relied too much on her and Jenny McCarthy being there. But together in the ring, the two of them put on a decent match. I thought they did well. I've seen better between the two, so I kind of handicapped this because of that. Diesel retains the title. We know that Shawn Michaels doesn't achieve the boyhood dream for another year. So I'm going to give this match a 3 out of 5. I thought it was good. I think it could have been better. But all in all, it wasn't a bad match. It wasn't as bad as it possibly could be. But I expected more from them too. Like I said, I've seen them both wrestle several times, and I've seen better matches between them. So, to me, it makes it hard for me to give this match as good a rating when I've seen them do better. Now, the main event of the night, somewhat controversially, Lawrence Taylor with his NFL squad going up against Bam Bam Bigelow with the $1 Million Corporation at his backing. a lot of people at the time, and even historically now, go back and say that this didn't deserve to be the main event. But a lot of the draw for this WrestleMania was Lawrence Taylor wrestling. I mean, do you put this on first? Do you put this on middle of the card? Where do you put it on the card? It's hard to say he didn't deserve to be there when you got Mr. T in the main event of the first WrestleMania. When you got... Then when you look after that, you got guys like Floyd Mayweather in the middle of the card. So it's... I don't know. Did he deserve to be there? Probably not. Did the Diesel and Shawn Michaels deserve to be the main event? Probably. But you had to go with the star power and what was bringing the buy rates to the show. And like it or not, Lawrence Taylor was a huge star at the time, and he brought the buy rates to the show. Now, Bam Bam, to his credit, had no ego in this match. He let Taylor basically look like the tougher and better wrestler and better individual. He pulled a serviceable match out of him. To me, I credit everything that's decent in this match to Bam Bam Bigelow. Lawrence Taylor was gassed like a minute into the match. It really wasn't a good match at all. It's probably... If I go back through all the WrestleManias, it's probably the worst main event in WrestleMania history. But it's a spectacle, and that's what they wanted it to be, and that's what Vince was trying to do. He was trying to bring the spectacle back to WrestleMania, which we all know he loves. So, did it deliver on people buying the show to see Lawrence Taylor wrestle? Yes. Did it deliver for wrestling fans that went to see a good wrestling match? No. But with that being said, Lawrence Taylor picks up the win. I give the match a 1.5 out of 5. The sole reason I give it that is because of Bam Bam's Herculean effort to make it not the worst match in history. The fact that I've seen worse matches than this makes me realize, and I gotta believe that Lawrence Taylor did not take this seriously, considering the fact that he was out of breath a minute into the match, that he had very, very limited offense. And when I mean limited offense, I want to say he made the Ultimate Warrior look like Dean Malenko. So, with that being said, kudos to Bam Bam, a guy that really doesn't get the credit he deserves. There's a lot of people I'm mentioning with that. Because of this era of wrestling and how the WWE was in a down period, there's a lot of wrestlers that don't get the credit that they deserved that were really great during this time. Guys like Jeff Jarrett, where you see that people question him going into the Hall of Fame. If you watched him during this time, he was fantastic. He was one of the best wrestlers in the world. And, going on and doing all he did in TNA and WCW as well. He was great. The team with Yokozuna and Owen Hart, they never get mentioned among the best tag teams of all time, but realistically, they were great together. They should be up there in the top 10 or 20 or whatever you say. The Smoking Guns were an awesome team. Bam Bam Bigelow was a great wrestler. We look back and we tend to put this time as Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and that's it. And that's all we look at is who's great. But you look back, you got guys like the 1-2-3 Kid, the Road Dogg, Razor Ramon. You got Undertaker, even though, like I said earlier, I thought he would be better later. Billy Gunn is part of the Smoking Guns himself. Bam Bam Bigelow. I mean, up and down this card, we got tons of great wrestlers. Unfortunately, the product itself was falling a little bit behind the times, and it wasn't as popular as it was maybe 5-6 years before this, so those guys don't get looked upon as favorably as a guy like say Bam Bam Bigelow doesn't get looked upon as favorably as a guy like Big Boss Man. They're very similar in their careers. Even Bam Bam's career might be even a little bit better, but because the time that Boss Man was on top and the time that Bigelow was on top, Boss Man gets looked like a little bit better. or guys like the Smoking Guns. The Smoking Guns wrestled in the 80s. We remember them as one of the great tag teams of all time. Unfortunately, they didn't, so we get them as basically a footnote. But with all that being said, I'm going to go right into my ratings for the show. As you can guess, we have a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. A 5's a Kane, a 4 is a Gold Dust, 3 is a Hurricane Helms, 2 is a Dungeon of Doom, 1 is a Gobbledygooker. I'm giving this show a 2, a Dungeon of Doom. A lot of stuff I thought could have been better. A couple things I really enjoyed. The tag match I really enjoyed. The interaction with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Bob Backlund I enjoyed. A lot of the stuff underwhelmed me, so basically that's why it ended up being a 2. There was a lot of underwhelming matches on this card that could have been better, that should have been better, but weren't. But basically, that's all I have to say on that. Thank you again, Ryan, for suggesting this, and if you want to see me review something that's on the WWE Network, it's just that simple. Let me know in the comments, say, hey, I would like to see you review this, and when I have time, I'll make sure to get to it. And while you're also there, hit like, share, comment, spread this around, let everybody know that you like Heel Heat, and you like what we do here. But basically, that's all I have to say on this. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.